Hey, Hari Om, everyone. So, what we heard is the full Ganapati Atharvasheersha. And it has the first, it has got three parts, you would have seen. First part is the Mangala Shloka or the Shanti Mantra, Shanti Patha. The Bhadram Karnebhi. Bhadram Karnebhi is the Mangala Patha or the Shanti Patha. Then comes the body of the Atharvasheersha, which is the whole actual Ganapati Atharvasheersha mantras. There are 10 verses there. And then after that, you have the what is called as the Phalashruti. So the Phalashruti are a few verses. So usually, if you have to really chant, it's good enough to chant the what is called as the Shanti Patha and the body of the whole Atharvashirsha. If you have time, you can also chant the Phalashruti. So that forms the complete Ganapati Atharvashirsha. And that is the, and it is part of the Upanishad. Okay. It's part of the Atharva Veda. So as part of the Atharva Veda, this is towards the end of the Atharva Veda, and it is an Upanishad. Why is this an Upanishad? Because this has the if you've heard it and if you recognized some verses there, they are clearly Vedanta. There is description of Vedanta. Kalatrayatitah, avasthatrayatitah, tvam tattvamasi, tvamevam kevalam brahmasi, tvam sakshat atmasi nityam. So these are all Mahavakyas. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahmasi. Tvam Sarvam Khalvidam Brahmasi. These are all Upanishadic Mahavakyas. And these references are made here in context of Ganesha. So that according to Adi Shankara, any text in the Vedic literature which talks about Brahman, which talks about Atma, talks about consciousness, talks about the essence of all things, which talks about that, it will be deemed as an Upanishad. Which is why even Ishavasya Upanishad, if you notice, it is actually physically sitting in the Samhita portion of the Yajurveda. It's sitting in the Samhita portion of the Shukla Yajurveda, but still it is considered as an Upanishad. It's not at the end, it is still at the beginning, yet it is considered because the 18 verses there in the Ishavasya Upanishad talks entirely about Brahman. It talks about it is Atma Vidya or Brahma Vidya. It talks about the knowledge or gives the understanding of that essence, the supreme consciousness. So wherever you find this in the Vedic literature, those have been pulled as Upanishads. So Ganapati Atharvasheersha is a minor Upanishad. It's considered to be a minor Upanishad because the major Upanishads are those 10 Upanishads we know, right? Isha, Kena, Katha, Mundaka, Mandukya, Aitareya, Taitareya, Prashna, Brihadaranyaka, Chandogya. These are the 10 major Upanishads because the references of these Upanishads are found in the Brahma Sutras. Hence, these are considered as then some people consider the Shvetashvatara Upanishad also one of the major. Some people consider the Mahanarayana Upanishad as one of the major. So there are different little slight variations in the different schools. But by and large, these 10 Upanishads are considered as the principal Upanishads. And then there are several other Upanishads which are considered as minor Upanishads. So they're Upanishads in content, but they are minor because references are not made in the Brahma Sutra. That is all. Otherwise, they also talk, like for example, Kaivalya Upanishad. There is a Kaivalya Upanishad, very beautiful. In fact, there is a shloka in Kaivalya, verses in Kaivalya Upanishad, which are chanted whenever you receive a sannyasi to your place. That particular verse is chanted always from the Kaivalya Upanishad. So there are many Upanishads which carry a lot of import and importance because of the content, but it's just that they are not considered as the principal Upanishads because references are not made in the Brahma Sutra. That is all. And Brahma Sutra has made references only to some 10 Upanishads. Which are these 10? Those 10 Upanishads, Brahma Sutra has made a reference. And that is why those have been considered as principal. Doesn't mean the other are minor, doesn't mean major, and minor doesn't mean in import, doesn't mean in importance or significance. It doesn't mean that way. It means those 10 are principal because there is reference in the Brahma Sutras. These are other Upanishads which are not made references in Brahma Sutra and other places, but they are still important in terms of somebody who's wanting to study and understand. It's important. The other thing is, as we spoke, there are some Upanishads which are used for chanting, right? Like, for example, Chandogya Upanishad, you don't chant so much, but Ishavasya is chanted. Whenever there is a ritual, a puja that happens, Ishavasya is chanted. Likewise, Taittiriya Upanishad is very, very commonly chanted. In the same way, Ganapati Atharvasheersham is also an Upanishad that is very, very commonly chanted. And this is somehow in the central India area, Maharashtra and all, it's very, very popular because Ganesha, Ganapati, the whole Ganesh Chaturthi and all that is very, very actively celebrated there, right? So this is of a lot of importance in that region. But Ganapati Atharvasheersham as such is an Upanishad which uses Ganesha as the medium. Okay, so we know there are 6 what do you call as Shan Margas. Shan Margas. One is Shaiva, which follows the Shiva path. Vaishnava, that follows the Vishnu path. Shakta, that follows the Shakti path, Devi path. Kaumara, that follows the Subramanya path. Shaura, that follows the Surya path, Aditya path. Ganapatya, that follows the Ganapati path. So those who hold Ganapati as their primordial Bhagavan or that Ishta, like how some hold Krishna as the highest God, some hold as Narayana as the highest, some hold Parashakti Devi Ambal as the highest. There are people who hold Ganapati as the highest. And truly so, because one of the greatest difficulties people have had is to understand and formulate this whole Hindu Sanatana Dharma tradition, culture, right? How can there be so many gods and suddenly everybody is equally important in some places? And some places you say, if you take Skanda Purana, other deities are spoken as smaller. Shiva Purana, Shiva is spoken as higher and Vishnu is slightly lower. While in Vishnu Purana, Shiva is spoken slightly lower. So this confusion is there. And that is allowed because in this culture, there is no one way to the Supreme. Every way, every individual's way is the way to the Supreme. Right? That is why it is always acknowledged that whichever path you take, whichever marga you take, as long as your intention, your goal, your lakshyartha, your laksha is clear, then it doesn't matter what path you take. So that level of inclusivity we've always carried, right? Likewise, any philosophy you pick of the Shad Darshanas of Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Yoga, Sankhya, Purva Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa, you can pick up any line as long as the intention is to understand the truth. You can pick up whichever one, right? So that level of inclusivity has always been there. So Ganapati, in that sense, is a deity which we've associated ourselves with certain engagements with this energy form, but it can also be used as a pointer to the Supreme. Similar to what we did with Aditya. Aditya Hridayam, we said Aditya Hridayam, you pray to Aditya for certain things of well-being and all of that. But he can also be used as a pointer to point to that Supreme Consciousness which is shining, which is the power of Aditya. तत्र सूर्यो भाति न चंद्रतारकम नेमा विद्युतो भाति कुतोऽयमग्निः तमेव भान्तम अनुभाति सर्वम tasya bhasa sarvam idam vibhati. From here everything shines. So we said this, right? So this is the source of all that is shining. Even that you see Ganapati, you see Surya, you see Kumara, you see whoever, it is this consciousness that is powering all of that. So with that intention, one, we are clear. Then when we look at all of these works, they talk the same thing. It's just that there is a difference in terms of poetry. There is different in terms of emphasis. There is difference in terms of the way you approach the deity. Right? That is all. Otherwise, the intent, we have to remember the intent of all of this. Again, Lalita Sahasranamam we are doing, Saundarya Lahari we are doing. The intent is the same. It is eventually the same intent. The question is then why are we doing so many this thing? That's also another thing. Why are we talking about the same thing in so many different ways? That's because we don't daily நமக்கு ரைஸும் பருப்பும் மோரும் கொடுத்தோம்னா we'll not be satisfied with that, right? We want one day we want உருளைக்கிழங்கு, one day we want அன்னைக்கு நீ பண்ணியே அந்த ஒரு கத்திரிக்காய் பொடி மசியல் அப்படின்னு சொல்லி கேட்கறோம்ல. Because we have different tastes. Different people have different tastes, that's for sure. And also even within us at different times, we want to connect with different tastes. Some different things excite us or give us joy. So we use any one or more of these channels. Sometimes if you're reading the same thing again and again and again, you may find, let me read something else which maybe says the same thing but says it differently. Right? So it gives a lot of renewed perspective. And again, yesterday we spoke about perspective. It's all about perspective. Now, how many different ways you can look at this, the truth, different ways you can approach it, those many kinds of scriptures are available. If you want to look at God as a human being, you can see. You want to see as an animal, you can see. You want to see God as a non-being, nirguna, you can see. You want to see him as a male, you can see as a female, you can see as a child, you can approach God. As a bala, you can approach. As an old lady, you can approach. You can approach her as a widow, Dhumavati. In Dasamahavidya, she is the form of a widow. You can approach her as a Dhumavati, as a widow deity. You can approach her as Kali, which is Ugram. You can approach her as the soft and gentle Saraswati and Lakshmi. In whatever form we are, at what time our minds are operating, at what different times the way our energies are, we can approach them in different forms. So Ganesha that way is one particular aspect. Now, there's a whole lot of symbolism behind Ganesha, right? You're familiar with that. He's got an elephant head. He's got the body of a human being. He sits on a Mushika Vahana. Mushika is a small rat, a mouse. He sits on a mouse as his vehicle. And he's got a single tusk. So there's a whole caricature that's been created of Ganesha. And there are stories around this, right? There are stories how Ganesha became Ganesha because of the popular mythical lore is where Parvati created him out of the contents of her body, from the skin. She created from the remnants of her skin. She rubbed off the energy. With that energy, she created Ganesha. And then Shiva came and chopped off his head because he didn't allow Shiva to go and meet Parvati while she was bathing. And then Shiva then had to fix a head back. And then he told his Ganas, go and find the nearest animal. They got an elephant, and then they fixed the elephant's head, and so on and so forth. Right. So there's mythical lore around all of this. Now, that aside, that on one side, we know that in the Puranic literature, they create these archetypes of gods, so that because it's through drawings, through imagery, concepts and philosophies get delivered and stay longer for longer periods of time. They say, right, pictures speak 1,000 words. So writing prose or whatever, if you show an image and if you have the philosophy behind the image, slowly the philosophy may die out at some point because people wouldn't have communicated that, but the image is there. You can always derive the philosophy from there, as long as the image remains, and the image will travel for long times. Even now, excuse me, even now for old excavations you will find statues of Ganesha, statues of Vishnu, statues of Shiva sitting and meditating. You will find these old statues and old drawings, cave drawing, or whatever. I don't know if there are Ganesha on cave drawings, but definitely there are murals that are available of very, very ancient times where these imageries are indicated. So what has happened through time, these imageries have traveled. And when someone is able to see, like yesterday we talked about Pashyanti, Para Pashyanti, Madhyama Vaikhari. So somebody who reaches through his conscious inner development, reaches a point of Pashyanti, is able to see, he will be able to see the image and understand the philosophy behind it. So that is why these images were created. These images created so that it can transcend time for long periods of time, and it can communicate the message for future generations. Okay. So that is so look at Ganapati in that way. Now, why he had why did he not? Why did Shiva put goat on Daksha's head but elephant on Ganapati's head? We don't know those question answers. I mean, I don't know. Right? We have to ask Shiva only why he decided to put one head on another. Two different people, right? But the important thing is that story is there just to introduce us to this character of Ganapati. But the character of Ganapati is not essentially because of the story. He didn't become Ganesha because of that story. That may have happened, may not have happened. The important point is the concept of Ganapati is represented in this form. So why now? Then what is Ganesha representing? What does Ganesha represent? Is the question. Ganesha represents abundant intelligence, creativity, and the ability to withstand or overcome any obstacle. This is what Ganesha fundamentally represents. Correct? You've seen this. We know in our practices, when do you invoke Ganesha? At the start. Gananaam tva Ganapatigum Havamahe Kavin Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspada Anashunvannoti Visidhasadanam Om Shri Mahaganadhipataye Namaha. अपनी சொல்லிட்டு தான் ஆரம்பிப்போம். That's how we start. Or we say Akradanta Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarva Karyeshu Sarvada. Ganesha. So we invoke Ganesha, and then we invoke that energy that is Ganesha. Why? Because I don't want any obstacles in what I'm going to do now. I want Ganesha, this energy, to come and remove all obstacles and clear the path for me, so that I'm able to do what I'm wanting to do. So this concept of Ganesha essentially represents abundance of intelligence, knowledge, understanding, creativity, and the ability to overcome obstacles. So the largest creature that is alive at the time these images were to be built was an elephant. So if you want to show somebody with a very intelligent man, how will you show? Einstein's brain was supposed to be 15% larger than a normal brain. So the two hemispheres, there is a gap between the two hemispheres. It's called a synapse, the left and the right hemisphere in all of us. The gap, the synapse was much lesser for Einstein, which means the gap between the two hemispheres is very less. So that is why there's heavy neural activity that used to be happening between the two hemispheres. And this is why his brain is also kept in a museum now, right? Not everybody's brain is kept in a museum. His brain is kept and it's been studied to understand how can somebody make such thought experiments completely unthinkable in modern science, right? Of course, if you look at our rishis' brains and all, they'll also be similarly that way, larger and all. But in modern science, with the development of modern science, you've not seen somebody who is able to visualize such grand scales of grand cosmic scales and phenomena that occurs at cosmic scales. They're not able to imagine as much as Einstein could. And then they studied the brain and they saw that between the two hemispheres, the hemispheres are slightly enlarged and the space between the two hemispheres is much lower than a normal human being. So that synapse is much lower. So there's a great amount of neural activity. That's why he could play violin, which is very artistic. And he could also think about space and gravity and all of those forces. So when you want to think about somebody who's very intelligent, you will imagine somebody with a big brain. And when I was very young, I had drawn the face of Einstein on like a sketch, and his hair, you always see, and his hair is always standing like that, right? So when I drew that face with the hair, I wanted to write a quote underneath, and I said, even his hair could not contain his brain, so because it's all over the place. And it'll all stay in place, right? But for him, it couldn't, because it couldn't contain his brain. So when you are thinking about somebody who's so intelligent, you always imagine somebody with a large head or a large brain or something like that. So at that time, the animal that was, I don't think people at that time thought about dinosaurs, right? The largest animal that was available to them to be able to perceive or see was an elephant. I said, we'll put an elephant head on this concept that we are wanting to depict, saying it's of abundant intelligence and creativity. And the interesting thing about the tusk, the what do you call, the trunk of the elephant is, if you notice, the trunk of the elephant is both karmendriya and a jnanendriya. Correct. Mammoth was a precursor and mammoth was an elephant, right? Mammoth was the form of an elephant. You're right. But it had a similar head. It had large ears and a similar form of a head. And it had a trunk and tusks. Of course, mammoths had much larger tusks. But the trunk, interestingly, is used for two purposes by the elephant. It can also smell through it. So it is a jnanendriya. Jnanendriya is an organ of perception. And it can also grasp and hold things, which means it is also a karmendriya, which means an organ of action. So it's very interesting to note that this tusk, the trunk, has dual capabilities to perceive and to also act. So why is that important? I'm talking about the symbolism. Why is that symbol important? Because as an individual, when I want intelligence, when I want understanding, when I want to do some action, I need the right ability to perceive things in the right way. So your perception must be sharpened. And at the same time, my ability, my capability to do should also be there. My skill should also be developed. So if I have good perception, but I am not able to do, then I'm incomplete. But if I'm able to do, but I don't understand things the right way, then also I'm incomplete. Correct? See, if I understand and எல்லாம் புரியுது ஆனா செய்ய தான் முடியல, I'm not able to do அப்படின்னா, that is a lack. What Ganesha is suggesting is, or the through the trunk that symbolism is suggesting is, we have to be capable in both, capable in understanding and also capable in acting. And so if I'm able to understand but not able to act, then I'm constrained. At the same time, I'm able to act, I'm skilled, but if I don't have the right understanding, then I can be disastrous in the world. Right? It will be like an excited child. A child that is excited, it's got skills, it can do a lot of things, but if it doesn't have the right understanding, it can harm itself, it can harm other people, just because of the hyper tendency. So both of them have to be offered in the right measure for me to be able to be effective in the world. So first, I need the intelligence, the understanding, and then I should be able to perceive and act accurately. And he is also, so once you have the intelligence, so what is intelligence important for? To be able to overcome an obstacle. See, what is an obstacle? We need to understand within us what is an obstacle. Why do we pray to somebody to remove an obstacle? An obstacle comes because I desire to do something. I want to do something, but I am unable to do it because something else is restraining me from doing it. Right? So when I desire to do an action or I desire to achieve something, but there are other things that come in the way for me not to be able to achieve. That is an obstacle. Those things that come in the way are an obstacle. Now, somebody who's very intelligent, what does he do? He will find a way out. Right? He will find a way out. He will say, okay, if I'm going like this, I know this thing will come. Let me go this way. Let me go that way. Let me go that way. Because I want to achieve my end goal. So intelligence gives you a great deal of ability to overcome obstacles. So when you are praying to Ganesha or this archetype, this energy form, remember Ganapati is also called as Vigna Karta. Now we may not have thought of Ganesha in this way. He is considered as Vigna Karta and Vigna Harta. We always pray to him as Vigna Harta, which means the remover of Vignam. Vignam means obstacle, a remover of obstacle. But he is also Vigna Karta. He is also the energy that can cause an obstacle in you. So, இது எப்படின்னா கவிதா ஒரு தமிழ்ல ஒரு ஷேயிங் சொல்லுவா, மேபி ஒன் ஆஃப் யூ கேன் டெல் மீ. என்ன சண்டைக்காரன் கால் இல்ல ஒரு நிமிஷம் லாஸ்ட் கவி.
சாட்சிக்காரன் கால்ல விழுறதுக்கு சண்டைக்காரன் கால்ல விழுந்துடலாம்.
கரெக்ட். அதான் சாட்சிக்காரன் கால்ல விழுறதுக்கு சண்டைக்காரன் கால்ல விழலாம். So the problem, the one who is creating the problem. So the phrase is trying to go and plead with the witnesses, please come and support me in a case where you're stuck. It's better to fall at the feet of the opponent and plead with him, saying that, don't make it hard for me. So why do we actually go to Ganesha seeking that please remove obstacles? Because he's the one who can cause obstacles. That's an energy that can cause obstacles. It is the energy of the Mooladhara. It is the energy that is established. Mooladhara sthitosi nityam. Mooladhara sthitosi nityam. Did you, if you notice that phrase came in the Ganapati Atharvasheersham. Lambodhara. He's also called as Lambodhara. He is the one, that is the energy. The Ganapati energy, Ganesha energy is established in the Mooladhara. And in the Mooladhara, if that energy is not activated properly, it can cause you to be, you need to be steady. But what can happen is, if you don't activate the energy in the right way, you can become lodged in a place, which means you can become, you become your own obstacle. You will become your own, you'd want to do things, but you will not be able to, because this energy is not activated in the right way. So Mooladhara energy or Ganapati energy is extremely important, because in itself is the cause for obstacle, and which is why you fall at his feet to remove the obstacle that he can potentially create for you. Right? So what do you need? You need the grace of Ganesha, which means you need an intelligence to be able to look at the obstacle. And when you know, and this is a very important thing, this I've heard from someone a long time ago, that when you consider yourself as bigger than the problem is never a problem. The issue with us is, when there is a problem, we think the problem is bigger and we are smaller. When you make the problem bigger and you become smaller, then that is a big problem to solve. But if you always remember that I am bigger than any problem that can come in my life, I am bigger than that. I have the grace of the divine. I have the understanding. I have the knowledge. I have the ability to see through. If we build ourselves with all those skills and make our mind sharp in that direction, then always, even psychologically, you tell yourself that I am bigger than a problem. There's no problem that is bigger than me. You will automatically see that the problem becomes small and it doesn't seem like a problem. I'm talking about problem in the negative sense that we carry. We get worried. We don't know what to do. Yes, you have to think about it. Yes, you have to work towards it. But if you stack up, now I had a problem. Okay, last week I had another problem. 3 months ago I had another big problem. So if you stack up all problems in your life as calling them as problems, you will end up looking at life as a series of problems. Because you made ourselves smaller and we've given greater importance to these events and occurrences. They're just events, they are just occurring. We have a desire to do something, and there are some events that are occurring in life. Some are conducive, some are not conducive. But we only look at the ones that are not conducive. Notice this. If there is a conducive thing that happens to allow you to do, so suppose from tomorrow you decide, I am going to go and do a 10-kilometer run every day. Third day, guests come home and you are not able to go. Patiya, prachana vandirudhu patiya abindru. I make a sankalpa, I'm not able to keep up. Something or the other happens. You will immediately try to. But 3 days you were able to go. See, what I'm saying is, we remember what stops us from doing something. We don't remember things that enable us to do something that we're doing. That is because we always focus on the wrong things. We end up focusing on, we assume that if I think of something, it has to happen. Why? Why do you think the moment you think something, it has to happen? Things may happen, may not happen. The important thing is to be able to perceive that, yes, I have made a sankalpa, I am trying to work on it. And there are forces that are helping me, there are forces that will distract me. So I thank the forces that are helping me. I will work, I will seek assistance to remove the distractions. And that is why we start with what is called as the Mangala Shloka. Whenever we do anything, we start with a Mangala Shloka or a Shanti Patha. And one of the Shanti Pathas, Atharvana Veda Shanti Patha, is Bhadrang Karnebhi. So we start with that usually, right? So what we are trying to do is recognizing that a task that I take, and you look at the whole Ganapati Atharvasheersha is about perceiving that Ganesha as this primordial consciousness, as this Brahman, as the creator, destroyer, sustainer principle, as that which is pervading and pulsating through everything. So that Ganesha, which is through everything, in and everything, and I form a method of communicating with that Ganesha, won't that Ganesha give me that abundance of intellect, understanding, and knowledge? Won't that Ganesha make me skillful? Won't that same power of Ganesha make me perceive things in the right way and overcome any sankalpas, obstacles in any sankalpas that I make, any resolutions that I make? So that is the way we approach Ganesha. So today we are just spending time understanding the importance of Ganesha. Like yesterday, for example, we briefly spoke about Saraswati. We said the same thing about Saraswati. She is the mother of understanding, knowledge, jnanam, vidya, everything she is offering. You're saying, why then what is Ganesha doing? எதுக்குப்பா அதே விஷயம் எல்லாரும் பண்றீங்க? Give me clarity. Tell me one. Some people have asked me this in the past. Tell me one thing I should do and I'll get everything. There's nothing like that. And even if I tell you one thing, you will not do just that one thing forever. After 3 months, you'll come and ask, "Are you bored? Tell me something else." So we are definitely not satisfied with that one thing. This is the way rishis like this Ganapati Atharvasheersham, Ganaka Rishi. The rishi called Ganaka, who composed it. He would have meditated upon the energy that is Ganesha for years and years and years and years. Can we do that? Can we just tell you, take this and go and do for the next 25 years? This is your mantra. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. We will not believe that it will work for me. You will not believe. Because we will want to keep testing it. We will keep, does it really work? It has been 2 years I've been doing it. 2 years wouldn't go. Even in 2 months, 3 months, we will start figuring out. Every day I've done so many chants of Ganganapataye Namaha. I'm not able to see the difference. These things either takes, because we are not simple beings. We are complicated beings. We have to understand that, right? We are not simple people. We look at ourselves in the mirror, we close our eyes, we look at ourselves, we know how complicated we are. We know how complicated we are. The smallest of things can upset us, and we can do things to upset people. We are very capable that way. We are very complicated. We don't understand ourselves enough. So how can we say that, okay, Saraswati is enough for me, I will only pray to Saraswati? We can. There's no saying no about it. But because we go through moods, we go through different processes within us, we go through different emotions, there are these, we've been offered We've been blessed in that way in this culture to be offered specific energies to deal with, that you can deal for your specific needs. So as much as Saraswati can provide you knowledge and understanding, it's a very subtle energy. Like yesterday we were talking about, Shiva also mentioned, Kalpaka mentioned Hamsa, Paramahamsa. That whole, it's a very subtle energy. If you have to deal with it, you have to approach it in a certain way. It will offer you the highest jnanam, that energy. Ganapati can also offer you, but the approach is different. Here, you're approaching him seeking intelligence, you're seeking his help to overcome obstacles so that you achieve your end. And he is, like I said, he is situated in the Muladhara, in the core of your being, in the root of your being. So you activate him from there, and then the next steps he will take you forward. Right? So what we'll do is we'll pause with this kind of introduction today, and next week we will pick up the Bhadram Karnebi, which is the Shanti mantra. And we'll close with, those who know what I'm chanting now, follow along. But what I'm chanting is the Ganesha Mula mantra. So chant along. Otherwise, we'll see an opportunity to learn this. Okay. We'll close with this. Om Om Shrim Hrim Klim Glam Ganapate Varvarada Sarvajanam Me Vashamanaya Swaha. Om Shrim Hrim Klim Glam Ganapate Varvarada Sarvajanam Me Vashamanaya Swaha. Om Shrim Hrim Klim Glam Ganapate Varvarada Sarvajanam Me Vashamanaya Swaha. Om Shrim Hrim Klim Glam Ganapate Varvarada Sarvajanam Me Vashamanaya Swaha. Om Kayena Vacha Manasendriyerva Buddhyatmana Va Prakrite Swabhava Karomi Yatyat Sakalam Parasmai Narayanaayeti Samarpayami Sadashivayeti Samarpayami Jagadambikaye iti Samarpayami Sadgurunathayeti Samarpayami Hari Om Tat Satgurubhyo Namah. Hari Om.